As you know, this year is an election year. Our next presenters are going to talk all about that and ways to get not only our students, faculty, and staff registered to vote, but also encouraging those in our local communities to vote and get registered as well. So now I'll turn it over to Caitlin and Jake to go over their information.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here and allowing us to be here. I was really looking forward to seeing you all in person. So I hate that we're meeting like this, but really appreciate the opportunity. We wanted to start today. I want to introduce myself and our organization. My name is Caitlin Metzguer, and I work at You Can Vote, which is a nonpartisan organization that works statewide to help people understand their voting rights and make a plan. And then our hashtag is Vote 2020. For folks who are on social media, we'd love for you to follow us using this handle. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's not always my first ask, but it will be right now because it is such a strange time and things are shifting and changing. So social media is a great way to learn the latest. We might see a couple new things, and so I'm going to tell you everything that I know currently, but things change all the time. So follow us on social. And then the last thing, the students, there's a whole section on our website with most of the information that we're going to go over here today. So if you ever need training documents or presentation materials or just how to find us, that's our website there. So you can vote.org/students. I'm going to tell you our agenda. So just very briefly, I'm going to talk about what elections are coming up and some of the tools that we have. I'm going to talk about who's eligible and who can register to vote. And then kind of the nuts and bolts of when are we voting, what's on your ballot, kind of the mechanics of the actual voting. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jake, who's going to talk about how to make your vote count and empower other people on your campus and in your community, how to talk about how to lead your campus with voter engagement, and then how to stay in touch again, social media, but we're also going to share some emails at the end as well. All right, so who is You Can Vote? I don't know if there's I think I see a chat box in the corner. You guys have probably all done introductions already, but if you want to let us know where you are and what campus that you are with, we'd love to see kind of who we're meeting virtually today. We've done a lot of work on campuses in 20 different counties, but we are always hoping to build and expand. You Can Vote was formed in 2014 as a nonpartisan group and as a nonprofit in kind of a response to a bunch of changes to some voting laws. And we don't talk about candidates or political parties or issues, but we do help people increase their voting literacy because it takes a lot each year to keep up in North Carolina. Things change all the time. Even, small things like the number of days of early voting, who can register. We used to have same day, then we didn't, now we do. Pre-registration for young people. There's often shifts and changes. And so we were created as a nonprofit organization just to basically help voters keep up with the latest. We try to target people and talk to people who are often turned off by partisan groups. They might be new voters. That includes young people, of course, and first-time voters for any reason. We do have a great staff. We are spread out over the state. We have 23 people on staff now, and the majority of our work, generally in normal times, is done by volunteers. So we do tons of events across the state with 3,100 trained volunteers who go to events and do voter registration and also talk to voters about whatever the basic rules are each year. I will, of course, caveat that and say that's kind of on pause now. We can't do face-to-face events, but we are doing more and more of this virtual work. And so one of the things we can do is help share this information and share this message virtually if there's more opportunity to do that. All right, Jake, the next slide is about what's on the ballot. And so this is just a slide in a Google slide, obviously. But if folks want to take a moment and open this up on their website, if you go to in the top left corner, there's a little tab in orange that says youcanvote.org/WOB. That's for what's on my ballot. we have created a really cool interactive tool to teach people about what's on their ballot. So this is what it looks like on the website. I would love, Jake, would it be hard to do that if you exit out of here, or is that maybe not? Oh, you can do it. Okay. So if you go to youcanvote.org/WOB, you will see the image that you just saw there. And we made this interactive to use on the computer and on the phone. It works mobile as well. And basically what this is built to do is when you're talking to voters, when you're talking to your family members, when you're talking to your neighbors and friends, and someone says, yeah, I know we're voting this year, but I don't think it matters, or whoever's in charge, it doesn't really make a difference. This is a tool for you to use where you can whip this out on your cell phone or your computer and say, what issues do you care about? Because we find that when you ask somebody, are you worried about civil rights? Are you thinking about climate change? Do you know anyone getting an education right now? Some of these topics here, we've chosen the top 5 topics. Someone is going to say yes to one of these. So you want to click on climate. So that is a live button there. Jake is clicking on that. And what this does is pull up a list of different offices that impact climate. So if someone tells you they're worried about climate change, but they're not going to vote because it doesn't matter, these are some great talking points where you can say, well, what about the Soil and Water Conservation District? What about the Commissioner of Agriculture? What about the county commissioners? And then some wordage here about what that person actually does. Again, you'll notice we're not talking about candidates, and so we're not promoting each person, and we're not going to really, we don't do endorsements or any of that. But we are bringing attention to some of these down ballot races and making sure that people know it's a huge ballot in 2020. Almost everyone knows we're voting on the president. Most people know we're voting on Congress and Senate. And so you'll notice here as Jake is scrolling, the federal offices are towards the bottom and they get more localized towards the top of the page. And that's intentional. That's because not a lot of people might be talking about the Commissioner of Agriculture. However, that's a really important position. And the person who directs programs of food, drug, and cosmetic testing, oil and water inspections, food safety, regulation of pest control, soil and water conservation, and forestry protection, you can see that that might not be the most popular office that folks are talking about, but it is very, very important. And we want to bring attention to all of these races, right? It's not just the top ticket races that we need to be talking about, it's all of these. Jake, let's go back and click on education too, because I know that's an exciting one for a lot of people. I hope you're paying attention to these races, but if not, or if you want more information, here's some great offices to talk about. School board, there's 115 districts across 100 counties. Those folks obviously are in a very strange and weird and I don't even know how to describe the time that we're in right now. But regardless, this office is on the ballot this year. They hire and oversee local school superintendents. They draw school district maps. They set the student discipline policy and select textbooks for students in the district. So you can see that that's a pretty powerful position. It's very, very localized. It's not top ticket. It's not a federal position. It's not really even countywide because there's more districts than counties in North Carolina. But I really want folks to get comfortable talking about this and researching this so that you know the power that this office holds. County commissioners, you'll basically see that on every single one of these issues. That's a really, really powerful position. Those are on the ballot this year, especially for community college. I want to just bring attention. They do set the county budget, and that includes community colleges and public schools. So you might hear a lot of things on the news about the North Carolina General Assembly not passing a state budget, but county commissioners kind of have been filling in the gap, and there are some counties with more money than others, and that's one reason, because of the variation of county commissioners. The General Assembly, that's our state legislature. Every single person in both houses are on the ballot this year and every single 2 years. So this is not a one-time thing. The other thing I want everyone to realize about this tool, the What's on the Ballot tool, is that this is not just for 2020, right? All of these elections happen every 2, 4, or 6 years, depending on which office you're looking at. And so we want to give you some information about how to get activated in 2020, but also know that our job's not over in 2020, right? Elections are going to keep happening. These are obviously cyclical, and so it's important to get educated now and help empower your community to become lifelong voters. And this is one tool to help you do that. All right, the next thing that everyone needs to know, I just want to go through the eligibility for registration and voting in North Carolina. Regardless of whether you have done this type of work before or whether you have a voter registration program on your campus, we want you to know this and hopefully kind of use this to integrate with some programs when we're back on campus, hopefully sooner rather than later. So who is eligible? You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be at least 18 years old on election day. That's November 3rd this year. If you're 16 or 17, or if you know folks who are 16 or 17, they can pre-register. So that means they fill out the exact same voter registration form. It just means it doesn't get processed until they're of age. And so you'll see that if you ever see one of the forms, you can fill out it as a pre-registration and just realize that you can't vote until you're 18. So that's one of the requirements. Well, you have lived in North Carolina for at least 30 days as of election day. That is November 3rd. Again, we're going to keep saying that date so you remember it. Anybody who lives in North Carolina now and obviously doesn't leave the state is going to meet that requirement. It only really comes into effect or really matters closer to the election when there's that 30-day window. And then not currently serving the terms of a felony sentence. In North Carolina, the way the rule is written is that if you are currently serving a sentence of a misdemeanor, and so that includes being charged with, being convicted of, and even serving time for a misdemeanor, you never lose the right to vote. It's a huge misconception, and we get this question all the time. In North Carolina, folks with a misdemeanor never lose the right to vote. There are people who are serving terms of a felony sentence, so that means you've been charged with and convicted of felony. Those folks temporarily lose the right to vote. But then once they're done with probation or parole or whatever's included in that sentence, when they're done with that, they are an eligible voter. There's no special paperwork. There's no special requirement from your probation officer or anything like that. Once you're done serving, and again, that's just for a felony conviction. Once you're done serving, you're done, and then you're an eligible voter. So folks who meet these 3 requirements, you can register and you can vote. Again, I'll bring attention to this hashtag. If you're ever talking about this on social media, hashtag know your rights is what we always use because it is kind of basic information. But this is what people need to know, just to know if they can register to vote and vote this year. I think this is about absentee. All right. So there are 3 ways to vote in North Carolina. You can vote during early voting, which I'll talk about in a minute. You can vote on election day, which is again November 3rd. But we're going to talk about absentee ballot for a minute. This is not typically our recommendation. It's a 2-step process, and it's a little bit harder than it used to be. However, we're leading with this, and we want to talk about it with you because of the situation that we're in right now. This is a way to vote without having to go anywhere. So it's very easy. Any registered voter in North Carolina can request and receive a mail-in ballot. It's called absentee voting. Some states you have to meet a certain requirement or a certain reason or excuse. In North Carolina, anybody can do it. So if you're not currently registered and you want to request a ballot, you can even submit your voter registration form along with these requests. If you're already registered to vote, you just do the absentee ballot request. It's a 1 piece of paper. Well, I think we have the link up on the next slide, but we'll get you that if you would like that. Some of the rules about absentee ballot. The voter has to request a ballot or a near relative. And so this is a change. A couple things changed in the last year with the rules around absentee voting. And so the person that actually turns in the request form has to meet a strict requirement of the voter or the voter's near relative. In order to do the request form, it's a pretty basic, just, your name, your address, a couple other varying identifying questions, including either listing your driver's license or your identification card for non-operator's ID, or the last four digits of your social. Some people who might not know that information, go ahead and find it out if you can. That's required to help the Board of Elections know that they're actually sending the right ballot to the right person, and it also helps them match up to verify your registration. It's not about any kind of other background check or anything like that. It's just about verifying who you are and to make sure that you're registered. So that's what you need to fill out the form. If you want to go forward, Jake, I think the two steps are on two different slides here. So the first step, you can request your vote by mail right now. I know November 3rd seems like a million miles away, and it does feel that way a lot of times. But it is not too soon to fill this out if you want to. The absolute deadline, the latest minute that you can do this, is October 27th by 5 p.m. The reason that date is, you can notice for future elections as well, the request form is always due 1 week before Election Day. So October 27th is 1 week before November 3rd. It's by 5 p.m. because it has to be turned in to your county board of elections. So any minute, any day you want to do this, you can do it right now. Download, print out, fill in, and mail the request form. I think that should be a live link for folks who are on the call. But it is embedded here. It's also on our website. It's the State Board of Elections. It's working. Okay. That's through the State Board of Elections. So the North Carolina State Board of Elections creates this absentee ballot request form each year. And that's the only form that you can use. So it has to be that one. But that's the one that you use. You'll fill that out. You'll get it mailed into your county board of elections. All right. So how do you find your county board of elections? The website for folks who need to find their county board of elections, we set up a hyperlink. It's youcanvote.org/BOE. It's on that slide as soon as we go back to that. But if you just type into your internet, youcanvote.org/BOE, that comes up with a list of all 100 counties. It is important that it gets to the right county where you're registered. So the absentee ballot request goes to the county where you're registered to vote. Again, if you're not registered to vote, you can fill out the registration form and send it in with your request form. So it's okay to send both at the same time. They both go to the same place. So that's the first step. You have to request the absentee ballot. The second step is to return it. And there are some strict guidelines around that too. But basically, you will get your ballot in the mail. There we go. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jake. The step 2 is complete it and return it. So once you fill out the request form and send it to your county board, they'll mail you the actual ballot. And what you need to do is open that up, fill out your ballot, and make your choices. Remember to do front side and back side. It's a very long ballot this year. And the way that you can prove that it's actually you who filled it out is that you fill it out in the presence of 2 witnesses or a notary public. Those can be anybody. It could be people that you live with. It could be your roommate. It could be anybody. Witnesses that have to be 18 years or older, and they actually sign the outside of your ballot. So there's a line for the voter and 2 lines for witnesses. You close that back up. They send you a return envelope. That's a special container, and you seal that a certain way and sign the outside, and then you drop it in the mail. So it seems pretty easy. I did just want to take a little time to talk about it though, because it's a 2-step process and the deadlines can be a little tricky. Remember, the request form is always due a week before Election Day, and the actual ballot is due at 5 p.m. on Election Day. So if you drop it in the mail, just make sure that it gets postmarked by November 3rd. It can arrive actually later than that as long as it's postmarked by Tuesday, November 3rd. If you do it right now, they're not going to send you your ballot immediately. Our State Board of Elections has said that they will start mailing ballots out in September. And so, again, the request form you can send in anytime. The ballot won't get mailed to you until about September, the first week of September. As soon as you get it and fill it out, you can drop it right back in the mail right away. You don't have to wait until election day. So just so you know. If you do, though, that's the deadline, 5 p.m. on November 3rd. All right, and then there's that hyperlink again to find your BOE. So that's absentee voting by mail. The other way, and normally our number one recommendation is to vote early. We love early voting in North Carolina. We have 17 full days of it, and it is very, very easy. Typically, any voter within the county can go to any of the locations. So you've probably heard it before or read about it just recently for the primary, that each location that's an early voting location, that's available to anybody who's registered in that county. There's no wrong place to go. There's also better hours a lot of times. Right now, the law says that early voting is available from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. on weekdays. A lot of counties have extra time, though. So there's often nights and weekends, Saturdays and or Sundays. So there's more flexibility for early voting. And then the other thing, maybe the best thing about early voting, is that we do have same-day registration. That means that anyone who hasn't registered to vote yet can go to an early voting location. They can register and vote on the same day. So we would love to help you get registered right now. But if you don't make it happen, or if you're new to North Carolina or any of those things come up, you are able to register to vote and vote the same day. That's only during early voting. It's because we have same-day registration. All right. So the next option, the last option, is voting on election day. And again, that's November 3rd this year. We do not have same-day registration at election day. So you have to be registered ahead of time. The deadline this year is October 9th. So if you're planning to vote on election day, make sure you're registered at your current address by October 9th. The other thing about voting on election day is that you have to go to your assigned polling location. So when you register to vote, you'll get a card in the mail. It's called your voter registration card, and it will have on there your polling location. Those places sometimes change. So for some people who voted in the midterms in 2018, you might want to double check again, because that location where you go on election day might have changed. That lookup tool you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, that's youcanvote.org/lookup. That's another hyperlink that we created to help folks look up their voter registration. It helps you confirm that you're registered. It helps you confirm which address that they have on file. It also helps you find your sample ballot, and it tells you where to go on election day. So there's a lot of information there. youcanvote.org/lookup. Again, that's through the State Board of Elections. We just created that to have a short link to make it easier to find. The last thing I'll point out here, and it's on our website as well as on our printed materials, hopefully we'll all be able to meet you sometime soon and get our fridge cards. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's the voter hotline. And this is a nonpartisan hotline that is run by election officials and election lawyers. 888-OUR-VOTE is the place where you can call to get any questions answered, or if you have any trouble, if there's any problems, if you feel like you were told this information, you can call that number, 888-OUR-VOTE. It's open all year round in North Carolina. That's an option for you no matter where you live, and which option you use to vote early, vote on election day, or vote by mail. All right, I'm going to pause and turn it over to Jake for this process to register to vote. All right, thanks, y'all.
All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. To introduce myself again, my name is Jake Gellar Goad. I'm the campus organizing director with You Can Vote. So You Can Vote, we do nonpartisan voter education, engagement, and get out the vote work across the state. And specifically, I lead our team of folks who work with college campuses, community colleges, technical colleges, residential colleges, all across the state. And so I'm excited to be here to talk to you a little bit today about the process for registering to vote. And then I'll talk a little bit about activities you can be involved with right now, even given our current situation. So the first thing I want to mention about registering to vote is you need to register to vote every time you move. A lot of new voters especially ask me, like, how long is a voter registration form good for? And as long as you're generally an active voter, like, it's good for a long time. But every time you move, it's time to update your registration. So if you've changed addresses, if you've changed apartments, you've changed houses, it's time to do it again. It's a pretty simple form, and we'll talk about it a little more. But do it anytime you move. That's the easy thing to remember. All right, so knowing your rights and making a plan to vote. So part of the question is, where will you be this fall? If you're already where you're going to be this fall, then register to vote where you live. As long as it's current, like you've changed addresses, it's time to update. But you can go ahead and get registered. If you might be moving to a residential campus this fall, it's important to know that residential campuses, students who are going to those, have the option to be registered at that campus or back home, and that's totally your choice. So students at a residential campus, I went to NC State. I'm from Mount Airy, North Carolina, so I went to NC State. I had the option of being registered there in Raleigh or back home in Mount Airy. Or even if someone went out of state, they could still register back home. So it's your choice. And if you want more information about how that works, you can go to youcanvote.org/students. There's actually a lot of good student information there for voting. But just to let you know, you have those kind of options for registering to vote. So how can you register to vote? Especially when folks like Caitlin and myself aren't showing up on your campus, setting up a table or setting up a clipboard right now. You're not at your campus. How can you be registered to vote? Well, there's a couple of ways. One I want to talk about is the basic standard bread and butter for North Carolina is doing it by paper. You can go to youcanvote.org/voting, and that will have information about it, and it'll also have the voter registration form. You can also find it on the State Board of Elections website, but we like to make the links easy to remember and have all the information for you. So if you remember youcanvote.org/voting, you can go there, find information, you can find the form, and then it's a matter of just printing it out, filling it out, mailing it in. So when you print it out, you'll notice there are several sections that'll be in pink or red, and those are required. So you'll want to make sure to do those. I'm not going to walk through the form step by step, although if anyone wants to walk through that individually, just shoot me an email afterwards, and we can do it over the phone and get you knocked out in like 3 minutes. Literally, it goes really fast. So if you have any specific questions, we can do that. But just make sure you get all the required sections. And there are a couple of pieces that aren't required that we really encourage you to pay attention to, and that is putting down some identifying information. Like Caitlin said, they like to verify who's applying to be a registered voter, and so that means putting down your driver's license number or putting down the last 4 digits of your social security. Another thing we encourage is people to put some contact information. That's another optional thing. You can put down a phone number for that piece when you get there. And then it's just mailing in your form when it's done. So you download it, you fill it out, sign in data at the bottom, and then you're ready to mail it in. And it's actually pretty convenient. You can fold it, well, if you get one from like a library or a public place, you can fold them up and seal them in. But you can get one offline, print it out, mail it in, and it's got the Board of Elections, every county Board of Elections address you can find there. So youcanvote.org/BOE for Board of Elections. You can find the addresses for each county Board of Election, so whatever one's local to yours, you can find that there. And then the new thing we have, this is brand new as of last week in North Carolina, is online voter registration. Now, it has some limitations relative to the old paper style. So you have to have a driver's license or a DMV issued ID. You need to know your full social security number if you're using this online voter registration tool. So I've encountered some students who are going to college, but maybe they don't have their driver's license yet. They're 18 or 19. It just hasn't happened yet, so they don't have that. Then you're probably going to go back to that method I just talked about, the download it, print it out, fill it in, send it in option. But if you are someone who has a driver's license or a DMV issued ID, and you've got this other information, this can be a really convenient way to do it without having to deal with mailing anything, and you can do it safely from your own home. And that's the whole reason this exists now, is to give us some more options in the new world that we're living in where we have social distancing. So the website you'll find here is payments.ncdot.gov. DOT is Department of Transportation because it's under the DMV. And that seems like an odd site, like why am I going here instead of the elections? but they're administering it through the DMV office since you have to have the driver's license. And they've been involved in elections for a while if you think about it. Like they've got the motor voter law. You may have been asked when you registered or when you got your license when you're 16 or your learner's permit to register to vote. And so they're kind of connected to that. So you can go to payments.ncdot.gov. You'll want to choose continue as guest. It's going to look like it's asking you to set up an account, but you don't actually have to go through that complicated bit. Just click continue as guest. It's kind of smaller and at the bottom, but click that. You can keep going forward. Choose that you want to do a voter registration application. You'll need to have that identifying numbers I mentioned before. And with this, you can register to vote or update your registration. If you're already registered, to update the address, to change party affiliation. And the address I should mention, it doesn't have to match the address on your driver's license. So if your driver's license doesn't have quite the same address of where you've moved most recently to, that's not what this is about. So like when I went to NC State, as I mentioned earlier, I was bad about it. My driver's license never said Raleigh during the time I was in college for my first couple of years. So it's okay if that doesn't match. The online platform does not allow users to make a name change. So there's still some more functionality from the paper form that you can print out and mail in than you have with the online. But the online is an exciting new tool, and we want to get the word out there about that. All right, some other things to know about voting. You may have heard about voter ID. It's put on hold right now because of the courts. And we just kind of emphasize that you can vote with or without a photo ID. It might be a good idea to bring one if you have it, but currently it's not required because it's on hold by the courts. And even when it was in effect, there was a waiver option. So the long and short of it is you can vote with or without an ID. There are times, however, where you'll want to have information that is identifying, and that's for proof of residency if you use same-day registration. So Caitlin was earlier talking about why early voting is so great, because in early voting you have the option to same-day register. So whether you're registering for the first time or updating registration, during early voting you can do that in person, but you may need to bring some proof of residency there and list the kinds of information there. All right, so a lot of what Caitlin and I have said is that things are in flux, things are in changing. We just had the online voter registration rollout last week. We are expecting the possibility of more changes around voting laws and mail-in voting, absentee voting that we talked about. We don't quite know what's happening with campuses. There's maybe some campuses that end up virtual for part or all of the fall semester. And so we're actively working to get out the latest information about voting law changes and about ways you can register, ways you can be involved if you want to go beyond just registering and voting yourself, but be more involved in the process of encouraging civic engagement in your community. We try to be there for that. And so we've got this website, youcanvote.org/volunteer. It takes like 3 seconds to fill out, and that just gets you on our email list. We send a weekly Wednesday email that has updates about voting laws and volunteer opportunities. And so I hope some of you all will check that out. Again, it's youcanvote.org/volunteer. And I'm going to hang out here for a second and give us an awkward silence. So if anyone wants to just open that on another page or on their phone so you'll remember to do it later, I'm going to give you a moment for that, and then I'll go forward. All right. Well, hopefully that's been long enough for you to at least get that site loaded up or ready to go to later. So how can you be involved at a distance? Because when we think about You Can Vote, if you've ever seen us out there, we wear orange t-shirts. We're kind of really bright and obvious with our branding that way. You'll see a lot of orange on here too. And we do a lot of in-person voter registration drives, tables, clipboarding. We present to classrooms. And right now it's hard to do some of those things. But there are still ways you can be involved remotely and can still volunteer. Caitlin mentioned earlier that we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram. And we are trying to put out timely and important information that we want circulating about elections. And so if you follow us on these and you help share that stuff, it'll help get that information out in the community in a remote, responsible, social distancing kind of way. You can also sign up to be a volunteer with our phone banks. If you go to youcanvote.org/events, or on our homepage, you'll see a big events button. We're doing a lot of phone calls right now. We're educating people about the census. We'll be doing education about voter engagement and get out the vote as the year progresses. And so we're going to have a lot of opportunities there. So if you're looking for an activity for yourself, or if you're connected to a student club or group, or if your student government organization wants a way to be involved safely and remotely, but do something jointly, like sign up together for the same event. Like you can go to there and sign that up. And also, here's my email address, jake@youcanvote.org. You can shoot me an email and we can work together individually to come up with a plan for civic engagement at your campus and how that works with the particular and unique situation that your campus is in and how we're going to handle things, whether it's virtual or in person. We can craft a specific plan that's unique to your campus and work together on that, whether you're a staff person, an instructor, faculty, or student leader, student government. We can work with you to help come up with a plan for civic engagement on your campus. So I hope you'll take a second to write down that email, jake@youcanvote.org, and send me an email right after this is over. Even if it's just the only word in it is, hello, let's talk. We can start a conversation that way and make a plan for your campus. We also have campus staff across the state. We have campus coordinators in Wilmington, in Raleigh, and Durham, Chapel Hill, Greensboro, Charlotte. I'm in Winston-Salem. We have a reach across a lot of the state, and I can work with folks who are in regions where we don't have folks, but I can connect you to our full-time staff who are already working in your area as well, so you can get that local support and expertise too. All right, our fellowship, that's another way to get involved. So if you want to go beyond volunteering, but you want to do some extra work and get paid for it, we're offering these fellowships. You can see the application and more information at youcanvote.org/fellowship. The idea is these fellowships are kind of summer through fall. They are $15 an hour. They are part-time, and there's different tracks for how much time you want to put in. So whether it's on the lower end or higher end, you have some options there. And originally we had envisioned this with a lot of in-person civic engagement, voter registration in mind, but we are also actively working to tailor it to the current situation with more digital organizing options and ways to be involved remotely. So we're still going to wait to see what the health experts are saying and what campus officials are saying when the deadline comes. That's May 1st. You'll see it there for we need to apply by to kind of craft out exactly what it'll be. But if you're interested, please go ahead and apply. Please spread the word. We're going to try to work with individual situations to see what we can make work with all of this. So that's a couple ways to get involved. I mentioned the social media. I mentioned signing up for phone banks and events, getting on our lists. Invite us in for a presentation. That's another way to get involved. We do smaller, shorter versions like the presentation that Caitlin and I are doing now. We call them class wraps or class presentations or student group presentations. We can come in and talk to a student government, to a classroom for 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever works for you. We've designed some materials that work virtually, and we can talk about the latest things like online voter registration. So we'll be thinking about, hey, our group needs a speaker. Think about You Can Vote as that possible speaker. And we're getting kind of towards the end here. I did want to mention the campus challenge. That's kind of our framework for the way we're doing some of our campus civic engagement across the state. We're working with any campus where we have partners to work with, but we're specifically really excited about this campus challenge. So we're trying to get campuses to join in, and we're going to recognize the campuses that do the best on a variety of metrics. So the greatest voter turnout, the greatest increase in turnout, the most number of class wraps, the most number of registrations. There's a variety of other metrics that we're looking at. We're going to celebrate the campuses who are involved. So if you want to learn more about getting your campus involved, if you're with student government or you're a campus leader or official or staff person on that campus, you can reach out to me, jake@youcanvote.org, and we can talk more. You'll see Duke's on there, Durham Tech, Meredith, Wake Forest, Wake Tech, a variety of campuses. We're in talks with more campuses. And if you want your campus to be involved in this, we'd love to have you involved and kind of really help create a plan for how your campus can be involved in civic engagement and then celebrate what you've done afterwards with a ceremony. So we've got that in the works too. And that wraps it up. So Caitlin, was there anything I missed that you wanted to add in before we turn it over to any possible questions?
No, I think that was awesome. It was a great description of what we're what we're doing and what we're trying to plan, even given the situation that we're in. So we're happy to take questions or comments or anything else.
So JJ, are participants able to submit questions to us or ask?
Yes, sir. I'm looking at the question box right now, and there is no. Oh, wait a minute. The question is, what are the requirements for the summer fellowship? And how old do you have to be for the fellowship?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. So because of the current situation that we're in with the pandemic, we are open to being even more flexible than usual about how this might work. Typically, we're looking at college students to apply regardless of age. We usually want students who will be back on a campus in the fall of some sort. So like graduating seniors, if they're going to be leaving the area, we're hoping to have folks who will be able to work with us for the summer and fall is what we're thinking. And so we're going to look at the virtual options for that as well. So if maybe you're in Wilmington because that's where you live, but normally you're at CPCC in Charlotte or something, we can work with you for the summer. Or let's say you're going to Forsyth Tech and you're here in Winston, like we could work together. So there's a variety of options, but I would say err on the side of applying if you're at all interested, and we'll work with you for your specific situation. But yeah, we are thinking a both summer to fall thing. So June 15th is kind of the start date we're looking at. November 3rd is the election that Caitlin mentioned. So that's kind of the time frame we're looking at. $15 an hour is the pay rate. There's some different scales on how many hours, whether I think it's like 10 hours a week versus 25 versus a little higher. So when you go into the application, youcanvote.org/fellowship, you'll see the different tiers and the different options for what you might want to do. And we do build in like some vacation time, some time off, because we recognize people will be doing various things over the summer. So it's not like you're working solid that whole time. And we can design flexible plans around the folks who apply. I hope that answers your question.
Another question here. Are there resources and or links available to inform people with disabilities about accessibility and their rights for voting?
Yeah, we have I'll jump in, Jake. There's a great partner organization that we have called the North Carolina Disability Rights. And they actually do an accessible voting right or voting guide that will come out again in the fall. They do one every single year. So that is Disability Rights. I will try to find their website and pop it in the chat box. But they're a great partner of ours, and they that's one way. If the question is about like actual day of voting, I'll just mention that North Carolina does have curbside voting that they consider the most accessible way. There are a couple things kind of wonky about that, but that's one of those other things that I hope is going to be really, really improved because of the situation that we're facing this year. Our North Carolina General Assembly is considering and talking about making some good changes to help improve the voters' experience this fall. So that's definitely one more thing to kind of keep an eye out on.
And that's why we want to stay on our weekly email list, because we'll give you updates about that as they come out, as the General Assembly makes changes, as the State Board of Elections, the state legislature make changes. If you're on our list, you'll get that updated information as it comes out.
Another question I have here is how much does a fellow need to know before applying, and what types of training do fellows receive before you send them out?
We'll train you up. We have fellows from a variety of backgrounds. So if you're enthusiastic about organizing and you want to get paid to do it and you've done it for a while, this is the fellowship for you. If you're new to it, but you're interested in it, you've got a passion for it, and you're willing to commit to learning, we are going to have trainings for it. We actually just had a kind of exciting alternative spring break program where we trained up some fellows. It had to get cut a little short because the pandemic was starting to blow up, but we just had that program go through. So we do have some good program materials, designs, and presentations to bring people up to speed. If you've got a passion for this work, we'll get you educated on what you need to know.
Can we share a copy of your presentation?
From today? Sure. Yeah, where do we just send that to you?
Yeah, so my plan is if you email it to me, I'm going to create a website with all of our recordings and presentations, so that would be a great resource to add. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
No other questions at this time. Any final comments or thoughts?
The thing I just wanted to emphasize again is my email address is jake@youcanvote.org, and please start a conversation with me. We can do whatever kind of planning we want for your campus, whether it's really simple and you want me to walk you individually through how to register to vote, or if you want a really broad plan for how you get your student government involved, how you invite us in to do presentations in front of classrooms virtually. We've got a virtual class app, or in person in the fall if we're back to in person. If you want us doing registration tables, There's lots of different ways we can come up with plans for education, what emails you might send out across your campus. We can craft a plan that's unique to you, whether you want to go big, small, medium, whatever it is. Remember jake@youcanvote.org, and we can start a conversation if you send me an email.
I would just add that, we are flexible in learning in this new experience. This is not how we imagined that 2020 was going to go. But we are definitely, learning and building and doing our very best to not just register every single eligible voter, but to empower them. We walk through the what's on the ballot. That's one way that you can get a registered voter to move forward and actually vote this year. Registration is a really, really important part of being a voter, but we know we're not at 100% turnout yet. So there's definitely work to be done. We want to support you all and help North Carolina move forward as a civically engaged state. So I think that would be my last thought, and I just appreciate the opportunity. I've never done this before like this, so this is fun, and thank you all for your time.
Caitlin, Jake, definitely thank you for your time and expertise. I'll make sure that I also pass along your contact information and all the resources that we provide to everyone. And as always, thank you for everything you do for our students. Please protect yourself and your family. For the others who are on the phone, our next presenter is scheduled to be here right around 3:15. So I'm going to send them a quick chat to see if I can maybe get them here early so we can conclude our date early. I'd like to thank you all for hanging around. This is a perfect time to take a restroom break and maybe recharge your coffee or your tea, and we'll see you in just a few moments.